What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So Fetterman, John Fetterman, the Democratic senator out of Pennsylvania, you guys have asked me to do some videos on him, just talking about the situation where, let's say, Democrats get to 51 votes, and then you have John Fetterman, and John Fetterman decides to either become an independent or decides to switch parties to the Republican Party, or even be an independent and caucus with the Republicans. What would that mean? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We'll talk about the whole Fetterman situation. And let me say this. John Fetterman has indicated that he has no plans to switch parties. Okay, so he's already said that. He said that multiple times. So does that mean he would never switch parties? He didn't say he would never switch parties. He just said he doesn't have any plans to switch parties. So what I want to do first is I want to take a look at Harry Enten. He's going to be talking about the numbers when it comes to John Fetterman and how unpopular he is. And then we'll take a look at the Senate map, and I'll explain to you the whole situation with John Fetterman. If he does switch parties, what that could mean for the 2026 midterm election. So we're going to do all that in this video. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. And if you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. So let's go ahead and take a look at Harry Enten talking about John Fetterman. Here we go.
Part of a larger story, Mr. Berman. And I would just say that John Fetterman is doing as well with Pennsylvania Democrats as the New York Giants are as liked in the state of Pennsylvania or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I mean, just look at this. Among Pennsylvania Democrats and net approval of Fetterman, back in 2023, he was a Democrat liberal darling. He was at plus 68 points. Look at how low he has.
Wow, look at those numbers. That is, wow, that's really, really bad.
Has fallen down to negative 40 points. He's down there with the Titanic among Democrats in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And, you know, to put a comparison point on, you know, we always talk about how Chuck Schumer is not well liked by the Democratic base nationwide. Chuck Schumer has a net popularity rating of about -2 points. He is 38 points more popular than John Fetterman is with Pennsylvania Democrats. And I was also looking at Kristen Sinema, who, of course, ended up leaving the Democratic Party in Arizona. She was considerably more popular just before she shifted over than John Fetterman is at -40 points.
This is a 108-point swing.
And this is amongst Pennsylvania Democrats, okay? So they're not even looking at the Republicans, independent. They're just looking at Pennsylvania Democrats. Wow.
This is an 108-point swing. Very good mathematics here.
I was honestly thinking, is that even possible? All right. How does this compare to other? He faces a primary. If he wants to run again, you know, he faces an election in 2 years. If he runs in a Democratic primary, how have senators who lost their primaries, how does their whole situation compare to this?
I would just know John was like off on the screen going, what, wait a minute, 108-point swing. You never see anything like that, but my goodness gracious. I mean, just take a look here. Okay, 2,000 senators' own party net ratings about when they lost a primary. Bob Smith plus 15, Arlen Specter plus 13. Of course, he switched parties to Democrats. It didn't work for him from a Republican. Plus 6, Joe Lieberman. Dick Lugar was at 0 points. Lisa Murkowski was at -15 points. All of these were considerably more popular than John Fetterman is right now at -40 points. He is below the lowest, the ones who actually got beat in a primary. There is no historical analog to this. That is how unpopular John Fetterman is with Pennsylvania Democrats. There is basically no doubt in my mind that Fetterman decides to run for re-election as a Democrat, he will face a primary challenge and will be a very competitive one.
So Fetterman.
And that's really interesting because he would be running again in 2028. And so and this is the reason why you have Democrats, some politicians that are concerned about this, because he could decide to become an independent. He could decide to switch to the Republican Party just to try to see if he could win in Pennsylvania, because you see how unpopular he is. And so that could push him to make a drastic decision. But we'll talk a little bit about that later on.
Says that Democrats are suffering from what he calls Trump derangement syndrome. Is that a compelling argument to make among the voters there?
No. I mean, that is the last thing that Democrats want to hear. I mean, look at this. Lowest approval among Dems at this point in term 2. Donald Trump has just a 4-point approval rating. George W. Bush, who was not well liked, was at 10%. Richard Nixon was at 11%. Donald Trump is the lowest of the low on this point. The bottom line is this. John Fetterman, when you look at his net popularity rating at -40 points, he's on a completely other planet from Chuck Schumer, who is also unpopular, and he's on a different galaxy entirely from from other incumbents who actually lost re-election, far less popular than them.
We set it up by talking about his vote to push Markwayne Mullin through committee. How likely do the prediction markets think Markwayne Mullin is to get confirmed?
Yeah, John Fetterman basically was the bow on this, because just take a look here. Okay, Chance Mullin's confirmed as DHS secretary, and this is before May of 2026. Look at this, a 98% chance according to the Calendar prediction market. John Fetterman is the big reason why Markwayne Mullin is going to get confirmed as DHS secretary. Another reason for Democrats who already didn't like him to dislike him even more.
Harriet, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And now I want to show you this. This is recent. Now the video clip that was a little dated. It was at least 2 or 3 weeks ago, but just a couple of days ago, Fetterman's chief of staff resigned. Okay, and it says right here, and this is Political PA. I'm just looking at the headlines here. It says Fetterman loses third chief of staff since 2023. And the talk in D.C. is that Fetterman's office, it's chaotic, and you have a lot of people. You have a high turnover rate, and so that means that a lot of these aides just aren't happy working with Fetterman. And so what that tells me is that the environment in that office is just not, it sounds like it's toxic. Now, I don't know if that's coming from Fetterman or if that's coming from other people who are working in the office, but it's not good if you have these people continuing to resign. And so why are Democrats nervous about this? They're nervous about this because when we start to look at the Senate map, Democrats have to do everything right in order to take back control of the Senate in this midterm election. And Fetterman could be in a position where he messes things up for the Democrats. And let me just show you what I'm talking about here. So if we're looking at Democrats and independents at 47 and Republicans at 53, if we saw a scenario where Democrats are able to defend all the seats that they currently have and then pick up 4 seats, so net 4 seats, it could look something like this. They could win in North Carolina, they could win in Maine, they could win in Alaska, and let's say they win in Ohio. Now Democrats and independents are at 51, and you have Republicans at 49. And so the fear is that Fetterman could say, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and switch parties. I'm going to become a Republican. If he becomes a Republican, we're looking at a 50-50 Senate. If we're seeing a 50-50 Senate, guess what that means? That means that the vice president comes in and breaks the tie, so Republicans would regain control of the Senate. And so that is why Democrats are nervous about Fetterman. And you see he's not popular. And if we're looking at a situation where he decides that he wants to run in 2028, can he really run as a Democrat? Because if we're looking at those numbers, Fetterman is very unpopular amongst Democrats in Pennsylvania. And so he could decide the best way, the only chance that I really have is either becoming an independent or switching parties. And so that is what Democrats are looking at here. Now, let's say Fetterman decides, you know what, I'm not going to switch parties. I'm not going to become a Republican, but I will become an independent. So let's say he becomes an independent and he decides, I mean, looking at his voting record, okay, when you look at his voting record, he has had some deciding votes where he's voted with Republicans, but the majority of his voting pattern is voting with Democrats. But let's say he decides he wants to become an independent, but he's still going to caucus with the Democrats. Well, that's not going to change much, because if he decides to caucus with the Democrats, he would be just like Bernie Sanders, where he's caucusing with the Democrats. And so the numbers won't change, and the Democrats would still be able to maintain control of the Senate. And so the real fear here is if he switches parties, he becomes a Republican. That's a fear. And then also if he decides to be an independent, but he wants to caucus with the Republicans, that's another situation where we would be looking at a 50-50 Senate. In this scenario, we'd be looking at a 50-50 Senate, and the vice president comes in and breaks the tie. And so although it's possible that Fetterman could switch parties, I don't really think he's going to become a Republican. I think if anything, if he was going to make a change, he would become an independent, and at that point, he would most likely still caucus with the Democrats. And when you look at his platform, he's still more of a Democrat than he is a Republican. And then one more thing. The reason, and Republicans, just believe me, if we look at a scenario like this, if we look at a path, let's show this one more time. If we're looking at this map, and this is what we see on November 3rd, then guess what? We're going to have Republicans in the Senate really trying to give concessions to Fetterman to get Fetterman to switch parties, because this is what is going to determine who controls the Senate. And so there's a lot at stake. And so they're going to be there. And then Democrats will be doing the same thing with Fetterman. But when it comes to Republicans, they're going to be out there. And so there'll be some pressure. And I've said this before, when it comes to Fetterman's popularity amongst Republicans, he's only popular with Republicans because he's a Democrat. He's not popular with Republicans. I mean, if he switched parties, he would no longer be popular with Republicans. Why? Because he would be a Republican voting for some issues that Democrats want and some issues that Republicans want, where we've seen how President Trump treats politicians that don't vote with him 100%. We've seen that with Murkowski, with Collins, with Cassidy, with Massey. We've seen how President Trump reacts to that, even with Cornyn. And so if he truly wanted to switch parties, and let's say he does it because he wants to run in 2028, he decides to switch parties to the Republican Party so he can run on a Republican ticket, guess what? The minute that he votes for anything that Democrats want, President Trump is not going to endorse him and try to primary him. And so if Fetterman thinks that would be a way out, a way for him to win in 2028, it's not going to be a way for him to win, because all he needs to do is do something to get on President Trump's bad side, and now President Trump is coming after him. So we're going to have to see how it plays out. I want to know what you guys think about this. What do you think about Fetterman? Do you think he will switch parties? Do you think he'll become a Republican? Do you think he'll decide to be an independent? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.